welcome to our Attire seminar, our interdisciplinary seminar. Today we have one of our postdoctoral research fellows at HUMA here, who is going to present on her work. She's one of our Carnegie fellows. Her name is Abena Kyere, and she's one of the Carnegie fellows at HUMA, resident at HUMA. And today her work is on, the title of her presentation is Share the Link, the phenomenal rise of digital prayer platforms and communitarianism. Abena is coming from the University of Ghana. She did her master's and her PhD at the African Studies Institute in Ghana. She also did like postgraduate work in the University of Education in Ghana, and she is a Queen Elizabeth Scholar, and also interested in gender and religion, and also gender and culture, and also literature. And she is one of the editors of Feminist Africa. We welcome Abena, and the floor is yours. Yes, please.
Thank you, Azza. You got the name right.
Kyere, yes.
And good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm presenting on a phenomenon that I find very this is what I'll be presenting to you this afternoon. So I'm looking at the phenomenal rise of digital prayer platforms and communitarianism. So this is going to be the outline of the presentation. I'll give a bit of introduction, why we are doing this afternoon, why you are all sitting here this afternoon listening to me, and what we are going to take away from all of this. So what is today about? And I pick this idea quite interesting from a party I attended with a group of 18 friends, where the birthday celebrant comes in and everybody started with a prayer, and they all responded in the show. I was lost. Well, me and another friend, we were lost because we were the only people who didn't know what was happening. And immediately that greeting went out. There was a bond of friendship, sisterhood, and people were sharing. And as I said, we were left out. So I would later ask a friend what this new greeting is about. And I was told that this is the greeting of a digital prayer platform. Mind you, I had been receiving invitations and I had refused to join. So that was the price I paid. I had refused to join. So this set me thinking, what does it mean for people who pray online? What sense of community or bonding happens there? And I interestingly chanced on the work of Weissman, and I found this quote very interesting for me, and this is where it started from for me. So he says that for some, referring to digital spaces, this change that we are witnessing, which is that we are moving a lot of things digitally, whether it's AI, whether it's platforms, whether it's media, social media, the people feel that there's disconnection. However, for others, it also means deeper connections. And some of these deeper connections are as a result of these digital spaces. So for me, the question then becomes, why do people feel connected to digital prayer platforms? And what are the specific mechanisms that are used to maintain this connection, whether it is online or whether it is offline? And I use Ghana and Nigeria as a case study. And I mean, anybody that knows that whatever happens in Ghana happens in Nigeria, whatever happens in Nigeria, we have a very toxic but loving relationship. You have to read the news to understand what is happening. You get it. So we are now in a whole world, not because technology started today, not because digital platform became a thing, but especially for Christianity, religions, but I'm particularly interested in Christianity. The rise of COVID-19 did something very interesting. This will not be the first time they are using such innovations for their worship. They were some of the new to have used what we call the new media, that is radio, television. And so for them, using such innovations or using such new spaces was nothing new to them. It was just a matter of knowing how to use it and how to get the people to use it. So who are the new Pentecostals? Just a little brief about them. Basically, when we group people into Christians, we are looking at what we call the Orthodox or the mission churches. That is the Romans, the Anglicans, the Methodists, most of the churches that were brought in by the missionaries. Then we have the Pentecostal movement. Mostly those were homegrown on the continent, especially across the coast of West Africa into East and part of Middle. And of course, Southern Africa has also had its own share of this kind of revivalism. But the new Pentecostals, people call them charismatic, but I prefer new Pentecostals not to confuse them with the new charismatic movements that are spreading out of the traditional missionary churches. Now, these churches centralize their beliefs or their theology around the Holy Spirit. And it is very central to their worship. They also believe that their worship must be intense, whether it is in singing, it is in dancing, it is in healing. They also believe intensely on exorcism. There's also a lot of belief in the fact of the evil out there, which is ready for the children of God. And so this evil can be countered with prayer, with fasting, with testimonies, and in some cases, giving. They are known to have very youthful and elitist congregation. So if you were to, and because I'm using Ghana and Nigeria, let me use that as an example. If you were to visit a neo prophetic or neo charismatic Pentecostal church in Ghana or Nigeria, you will find what you will call the middle class, English speaking, having office work, young university students, very fashionable, which is also part of their theology of wealth and well-being. Understanding that their God is a God of wealth, and therefore it must reflect on his children, that's their members, right? But another interesting aspect is that the leaders, the rich, the prosperous, the famous ones with the biggest churches are male. And according to Saki, about 80 to 90% of adherents or worshippers are female. So let's have this in mind as we go forward. But for them, one of the critical aspects of their worship is prayer. And so what is prayer for them? What does it mean for a Christian? What does it mean for new Pentecostals? Now, prayer is very central to spirituality when it comes to new Pentecostalism because it is seen as the channel through which you communicate to your higher God. People might say your higher self, others might say a higher spirit, but for new Pentecostals, it is a higher God. Through Jesus Christ, his son, who is the seal, the person who sends the message, right? And their type of prayer is what authors such as Abena Kyere and the late she have described as spiritual warfare. So there are different types of prayer, whether it's intercessory, but for them, it's a spiritual warfare. And this is based on some theological limits which they pick from the Bible. So for instance, there is this Bible quotation that says that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Remember, I've said that they are very much into the evil and fighting the evil, right? And so for them, there's evil out there that must be fought. But we cannot see this evil. It can only be fought spiritually using the name of Jesus. There is also the understanding that although they encourage individual prayer, it is best when we pray together. Prayer is communal. The more we pray together, the faster and powerful it becomes. And so if you were to walk through the cities of Lagos, Accra, Ibadan, Kumasi, you will have adverts all over about 40 nights of fasting and praying, 60 nights on the mountain, awaiting God, 30 days. There is always something about praise. In fact, it has gotten to the point where we now have national prayer days instituted in Ghana on the 1st of July. That is how much endemic, if I can, for lack of a better word, it has become in Nigeria. We all heard the minister telling the workers in the ministry to pray for the food shortage instead of working for the food shortage. They were to pray. But this tells you how people see, conceptualize, and live through their lives with prayer as a weapon for answering everything, and not just as an individual prayer, but in a communal way. But this idea of even praying communal is also something that is very steeped in our African culture understanding, right? Of interceding on behalf of each other, of doing things together as a group. And this finds currency in the Bible, which is of course the living manual of Christianity, where it says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them." Not one, not just you, 2 or 3. And this is how they understand when it comes to prayer, that it should be a communal affair. So now, having a frame to think about this, why this? I choose to look at it from the African understanding of communitarianism. The idea of Ubuntu, the idea of Uhunu, right? The idea of Biafwe in Ghana, or in Akan, or the concept of Inobwa in Akan, where you help me, I help you. I am because you are. That I am not just by myself, I only progress within the communal. Of course, this does not preclude the idea that the individual is not important or the individual is not useful. It is only that the individual find more progress within the community, within a group of people, right? And this connotes unity, harmony. And you realize that neo-Pentecostal movements mimics this idea very much. There is understanding of mutual support in times of prayers. There are contributions within the church. There are groups within the church for when someone is sick, for when someone is dead, for when someone is marrying, for birthdays, which is also interesting because this same movement has sometimes been attacked for being one of the main causes of the breakdown of this idea of communitarianism in Africa through accusations of witchcraft. So much so that some people can have children and their parents will not know, but the wife of the pastor will be the one taking care of the child. So it is just this complex relationship where they pull this idea from within the culture and use it within the Christian setting. But also bringing it home to digitalization, the digital space for spiritual or religious activities. How do neo-Pentecostals generally make a sense of this? Now, it's been postulated that to be able to use the internet for this, it has to be spiritualized or sacratized or sacralization of these places. And this is the understanding that even mundane spaces can become sacred. Even mundane spaces can become spaces for religious or spiritual interaction through, interestingly, an agreement between the divine and the worshiper. So this goes back to the Bible of Jacob praying on a stone where he had an encounter with the angel, and then that became a sacred space. And so the movement of religion or spirituality on the digital space, so long as there's an agreement within the community that this is the space where we are meeting our divine, it becomes sacred. And any activity that was happening within the physical walls of the church is now transported within these spaces. And these spaces can also be a space for community growth. And this is where my interest lies, among other things. But there's also always the critical question of, can that space be trusted? There have been works that have critiqued that these spaces have turned people into what Ado call digital spiritual hype people, where people don't have to see your interaction or your face-to-face interaction, and that you click on comments to just say amen, thumbs up, right? In her work, she shows how during the COVID on Zoom, people who were participating online started snoring, and they had to be, somebody had to wake them up through the chats and say, because so and so, please can you, you know. So this brings in the idea of authenticity. How authentic is the digital space for religious practices, for spiritual practices? How do we know that people haven't turned on and they are watching Netflix just because they want to their pastor to see that they are online? How do we know that what is happening online is not manipulated from the side of the religious authority? Right? So these are also some of the questions that come up when we talk about the digital spaces as sacred spaces. So just coming back to my work, how did I go about this? This is mainly a qualitative study. I do have some quantitative data, but that is not for this paper. I undertook one focus group discussion. I have been spending sleepless night joining at 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. just so I am able to understand how this works. Sometimes I wake up and it is over, but I try. I have conducted numerous in-depth interviews. For this, I used 18 of those interviews for this paper. And the age range has been between 19 and 60 years. Interestingly, I've not had as much male respondents as I am getting female respondents. And bringing us back to what I had said earlier about the fact that most of them are female. It's actually very difficult to get male participants who readily say, I pray, and I pray on these platforms and I'm ready to talk to you. Most of them actually will say, send me the questionnaire and I'll answer. They are not ready to speak about their experiences, right? But this data here also shows the interdenominational nature of these prayer platforms. Whereas the originators are neo-Pentecostals, those who pray on it are not necessarily Pentecostals. So they can be from other denominations. And although I'm undertaking this in Ghana and Nigeria, I haven't been to Nigeria. So I am recruiting from Ghana, and I've had 2 Nigerians so far. Hopefully, Solomon will help me to Okay. So now let's talk about these 2 prayer platforms I'm talking about, NSPPD and Alpha One. NSPPD is in Nigeria, and it was started by Pastor Eze, and it has become so huge that CNN did a piece on them, right? This is their digital footprint. That at the peak, they can have 90, but I have been there, so I know, I've watched them. It is hot, as we call it, prayers. They have numerous platforms, and those numbers you see there are what it is. At any given day, I didn't join today, I was working. At any given day, you have thousands of viewers and people commenting actively on the platform where prayer is happening and donating. They have numerous, so they display numerous outlets for people to donate, whether you are in UK, international numbers, local numbers, whatever numbers, whatever. Okay. And in Ghana, there's a Facebook fan page called Afarian Ghana and NSPPD in Nigeria. They have 73 members who actively share ideas, comments, testimonies, and that is not even for the church. It is just an individual, Nana Valentina, who started the movement to create that community outside the various digital platform communities that the church has. So clearly, this is even moving out of the hands of the originators, that individuals now feel so legitimately part of this process that they feel that they can also have this create spaces to further express their ideas and to commune with others. Okay, now how do they operate? It's normally so for NSPPD is normally 6 a.m. Nigerian time. When you tune in, it will start with a musical performance, and then the man of God comes in, they show some testimonies, and the hot prayers start. Now they have prayer teams. I think for this month, I forgot, it's about Elroy. I don't want to lie, the man of God might be watching, so, but I promise to check was but they have themes, right, for the whole month, and that is what they are praying with. And the prayers typically follow the pattern of interceding, breaking evils, breaking through wealth, prosperity, health. And then there are times for testimonies. Now, these testimonies are sent in by people who claim to have received miracles. I use the word claim because they are saying it, right? And they can do videos, they can have written documents, they have it read, and it is shown at the end of the praise. There is singing, there is praising, and there is jubilation because people have received the praise. And during those times, my interest is in the comment section. It goes crazy. People are just, I tap in, I receive it. This is going to be next time. Elroy, God of miracles. The kind of conversation is what happens in the comments during those times. This trend is very similar to what is happening in Ghana's Alpha Hour. The only difference in Ghana's Alpha Hour is that there's a portion, there's a time where he does teachings. So it could be on he says he's called to teach about marriage and counseling, all of that. So he does a lot of teaching. And then there's prayers, there's also recorded testimonies. And one interesting thing, while this is going on, we are sharing the various miracles, various platforms for donations and all of that. So a lot of things can be happening at the same time on the platform. So there's prayer, there's testimony, there's advertisement, there's a call to worship. And very importantly, from the very beginning, before you even go into the prayer session, there's a 10 minutes, especially for Alpha Hour, recorded call for share the link, share the link. In fact, now phrases like share the link is no longer an innocent phrase. If you stood in the market in Ghana and said share the link, everybody, are you an affair? You know, because it has now become synonymous with the Alpha Hour platform. And these are already two pastors, mind you, who also have congregations, but their churches are not as popular as digital platforms. In fact, anytime I interview people and I ask them, what is the name of the church of the pastor? They don't know the name. Only few people. Most don't know the name of the church, but they know the names of the prayer platforms. And this is where most of the people are. So then the question for me was, why are people so connected to this platform? Why would somebody wake up every day at 12 a.m. and 6 a.m.? Interestingly, there are those who are just NSPPDs. So they pray only on SSPD. There are those who are only Alpharians. They pray only on Alpha Hour. And there are those who are NSPPDian and Alpha Hourians. So they pray at 12 a.m. on NSPPD and they pray at 6 a.m. on Alpha Hour. So they are doing the two. One of the critical things that came up, and which is the focus today, is the sense of community and togetherness that people feel. And these are some of the voices here. Now, why? Because people feel that the best prayer mode for them as individuals is when they are in communion with others, when they are praying with others. And people cite factors such as sleepiness, laziness, not knowing what to pray about as some of the things they face when they have to pray alone. In fact, some go as far as to say, I do not know what to pray about. Interestingly, the length of prayer also matters. So how long am I able to pray on my own? And how long am I able to pray with others? You know, you want to go faster, go alone. You want to go further, you go with others. So for these people, their best prayer mode is when they pray with others. And this is why that community is very important to them. For others, it is the charged atmosphere and the energy. And these people are now talking about the spiritual aspect of what they do. The fact that they have the spiritual belief that when a lot of energies in the same room or in this instance, conceptualizing the digital space as a room, as a space where they are charging their energies towards as a sacred space, then these energies that are coming together becomes what they describe as oil unto the Holy God. And so for some, it is that spiritual atmosphere that draws them. Others also find solace and comfort from what they call physical and, to me, spiritual isolation. And I'll explain this. Especially for my young participants, they feel very isolated in physical churches. They feel being in the margins of that space. But on this space, as somebody said, nobody is nobody. Right? We are all here. We're all praying about the same thing. We are all doing the same thing. And so I feel a part of it. I feel very invested. And then there are those who have the spiritual isolation, that what I call the spiritual isolation, where they feel that when they pray in church, because they are born into the same Methodism, Anglicanism, Pentecost, whatever, what they do is routine. There is no innovation. There's no change. It's about pray for the nation 5 minutes. They know you're going to pray for the nation 5 minutes for whatever, for 5 minutes. And then that is it. They do not feel, they feel that after church, they are unable to communicate to God on their own, in their own spaces, alone. And so they feel that that makes them move farther away from God as their being. However, when they pray with people, when they are online in those spaces praying, they feel the need. They have the sense of a community waiting for me, a community I have to join and pray. And so some will tell you, I was the laziest of people, but somehow now I just wake up by 12 a.m. and I'm ready to sleep. And I kid you not, you wake up and people have shared the link with you from 12 a.m. to 1, 2 a.m. So people are really awake doing this, right? Now people also have, I think I've already talked about that, it's improved their personal prayer life, because now people feel that, you know, these platforms have prayer points throughout the day. They have words of affirmation throughout the day. They have things you have to do, getting yourself prepared and ready for that space, right? So throughout the day, people feel that they are in their spiritual mode, getting themselves hyped and ready for that space. And so for them, this space is an improvement in their prayer life. And then interestingly, the idea of privacy, I think I alluded to that already, where people feel, when I pray on those platforms, I don't feel that. In a church, I am unable to pray properly, in a church where we say everybody should pray about this, people feel they mumble their words, or they don't speak out loud because they are afraid of other people hearing. And if you look at this quote, this is very sensitive, right? This is an older person I spoke to who sees his masturbation as a problem. And masturbation has been something that has been prayed about on this platform. And he says, if I was in church and they said pray about masturbation, I won't. I'll open my eyes. I don't want somebody to know I have masturbation problem. But here, I am in my room, but I am joined in and I'm praying. And I also know, and I see other people talking about how they prayed and their masturbation went away. And then the last point, that there are numerous, but I'm picking the very major ones here, testimonies. The idea that people join and feel deeply connected here because of the idea of testimony. Because also remember, the idea of prayer is not about immediate answer. It's about an investment into a spiritual future, into a physical space where you're going to be reaping the benefits, right? And people see these testimonies make them believe. And what is even interesting about the idea of communality here is that there's a strong belief that if I pray for someone who has this problem, my problem is going to be solved. So the more I pray for others, the more I give, the more I join in that group, the more I am looking out for the welfare of others. My welfare is taken care of. So how do these sense of community that people have on the platform, how does it work out in the physical? How does this continue when people are no longer on the platform? Like I said, saying share the link is no longer an innocent phrase. And there are most of them. As I said about the Friends Party, people greet with a pray. A show. If there were 10 SPPDs here, you feel how lonely it is when they start. Very animated and very proud of it, actually. So there's another one, what God can do does not exist. And every day with God is every day in victory. These are some of the greetings, the slogans they have. And it's interesting because these greetings are used outside those spaces. And I'll surely come to that. There is also the naming. First of all, they actually name themselves. I should have mentioned that. So as I said, people call themselves NSPPD. It means they pray on SPC, or an Alpharian. People have stickers. I am an Alpharian. And for a very long time, I saw it and I never knew. I thought it was an old school thing until someone prompted me about it. So they have stickers, they have handbands. The leader of Alpha Hour is called Chief Alpharian. And the prayees are called the Alpharians, right? So there's a name. And this is very tangible. When you name yourself, when you give something a name, it exists. It becomes real for people who are in it, right? Then there are also affirmative words that they share along throughout. If you would check people's WhatsApp statuses, and I do that almost the whole day, it's just scrolling. So I'm going to be, today is my day. Oh Lord of heavens, open my door. Elroy, the Lord has done it. And these are words that give people solace, even outside those spaces. And I have spoken to people who said, I mean, at least one person who was suicidal in joining this platform and saying these words over and over again, help them. I interviewed someone who broke down because she lost a loved one to cancer. And this was their survival mood. I said, so this is real to people, these shared identity. And interestingly, one, as I said in the small, it does not just create an immediate sense of friendship. People have also had real-time physical benefits of it. So I spoke to a woman who said, I went to an office, high-profile office, and I wanted help. And as I was speaking to the woman, she wasn't paying attention. And in exasperation, I said, oh, Lord. And the woman said, are you an SPPD? And she said, I am. I said, oh, I didn't know. And they started chatting about testimonies. And she did it for her, referred her to another person. And the next time she went to the office, they were willing. Another medical officer indicated that she prays on Alpha Hour. And she has seen nurses treat patients better. They pray on Alpha Hour. So they will say, oh, you pray on Alpha Hour, I'm going to join my faith with, this is her exact words, I'm going to join my faith with your faith. And every morning they are checking on them. And they are nice to them because they see them as members of their community. There's also this idea of shared prayer topics. I have seen people asking people, have you done it today? Have you, if people check on each other because they are in that space, because they are in that community. Of course, I've also talked about the shared testimonies that people are willing to share. Some people are reticent on sharing on the platforms, but they are willing. Sometimes when the interviews go into hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, and they keep asking, can I share more? Can I share more? I say, sure, go ahead and share. Things that they feel that they've been relieved from because of this platform. And even as a researcher, people ask me, do you pray on it? You should. Have you been on? I said, I joined, but for my research, no, you should pray on it, And so for them, the idea of shared testimony, and they tell you, oh, I know this person who shared on this. There's this, people actually remember the testimonies on the platform by root. and they can share them with you. There are also physical objects that keep this connection. As I've said, they call them mantles. So it can be a stool, like something like this, like a muffler they pray with, you know. There's a name for it. Oh, try and remember. They have t-shirts. They have items like water they pray on, and people use, and people swear by it that it worked for them. They have handbands, and these they also have books that they are writing now, so that people have these physical objects that they use, or that they use associate with, even outside those digital spaces. So what do we take from all of this? What does it mean? Sometimes we are quick to oversimplify, and sometimes also say, oh, this is something that will pass. But really, if you pay attention to what is happening, these people are seeing these spaces as, and I'm saying these people by saying those who pray, so pardon me, if they are seeing it as sacred spaces where they share with others and where they meet the divine. And this also tells us that the idea of spirituality is not always an individual or a private matter, especially even for these people. It is not seen as a solitary act. It is seen as a communal act. And this communal act can move, but can be an online as well as an offline process where communities and relationships are merged and are formed. And we also must understand that these friendships or these relationships that are happening are not just even about the platforms. Now they are accruing physical benefits. I must say that most of my respondents snowballed. So, oh, do you know, I know a friend who prays. Can I connect you? Oh, I know this friend who prays, right? And that's the word they use, because, and people are sharing and people are connecting. So this also speaks to us that the fear sometimes we have of technology being alienated, whilst it is actually real and legitimate, it can also be a place for deeper connection. And we must maybe pay attention more to see how this is done and how this can be handled, especially for people who see these spaces as critical spaces. But I also want to talk about some ethical issues that came up in the study, right? The fact that those spaces may be manipulated, right? Yes. So, for instance, I have seen people share testimonies where a 40-something-year-old mother has, how do you say that when you have 6 children at the same time? Quintuplets? 6. 6 tuplets, good. When she has 6 at the same time, 46. In everybody is jubilating, but there's no interrogation of that. Because I'm thinking, was it IVF? What role did artificial intelligence play in that? We are not having this conversation. Was it just a prayer issue, right? I have even spoken with people who pray on the platform, of course, who don't have any problem with the miracles. And it's interesting because sometimes I would even, as a researcher, I expect some of these people to be a bit critical because of where I'm talking to, right? Because if I'm talking to somebody with a PhD or a medical professional, and I'm asking about healing, I'm expecting some form, but it's for them 100%. Everything they are seeing is real. There's the question I always ask, have you ever had a chance of doubting any miracle? The answer is no. Which is interesting. For them, they might not see anything. But really, these miracles that are being shared of people, and they tell me, oh, the people come with medical reports from doctors that shows that they've been healed. How do we know it's medical? It's online. Somebody's just showing you a paper and saying it's a medical report, right? But people also tell me about their own personal miracles they have experienced. These are factors, right? So this issue is very real. This issue of how true are these spaces, especially for some of the things they are showing, right? Then there's the issue of the lack of accountability. For whether it's financial, whether it's spiritual accountability. So for people who join, they are joining because they are seeing these spaces as places where they are getting some form of solace, feeding, nourishment. When it fails them, who remains accountability? What do they have a voice? And I asked this question because I chanced on an article online. It was not an article, it was a shot of somebody who was attacking one of the pastors, the NSPPD, and saying, this guy, we are coming for you. It's just a matter of time. And you know what, the person doesn't say what has happened to her, but she's really aggrieved. And I'm always interested in the comments. The attack on the person who made that video was wow. None of the comments was critical. Nobody asked, can you tell us what has happened? Can you, what is it? What is going on here? It was about you, the devil is a liar. You will not succeed. The man of God will go higher. You distracted. Nobody. I don't know, maybe I was doing it with my researcher lens. Maybe if I was praying, I wouldn't also ask. But of course, this is my responsibility too as a researcher. But nobody in the comments found anything wrong. It was about God is going to bless Daddy. He's going to go higher and all of that, right? Then there's others have even other researchers have raised the issue of the monetization, right? Which is also a very critical aspect of, very central, not critical, very central to neo-Pentecostal prosperity model. You give God, God will give you. The more you give, the more you get from God. But God is merciful, but you still have to give him more. Right? And these platforms, look, there's donations happening on the platforms. There are numbers, and I think that works have shown, and I'm also witnessing this happening. And I actually had an inkling when this started. I had a conversation with a friend, and I said, this was when Alpha Hour has started. And I told a friend, this is very familiar. This is like the radio, TV preachers, but it's just a digital space. And the friend said, oh no, he's not asking anybody for anything. It's just you have to buy your data. This was about 4 years ago. But now there are donations and there are numbers, bank accounts, numerous of them. And so this is really not different from the neo-Pentecostal charismatic model of prosperity that people are witnessing. But when it is happening on a digital space, how do we account for it? Who knows how much who is given and where everything is going, right? And then most important, something I put asterisk here because I am interrogating a little bit about these online spaces.
I mean, you should finish, wrap up. Yes.
these online spaces affect online spirituality. And I got this from 2 priests. So I have to interrogate for other respondents because the priests think that it makes them lose some authenticity in the eyes of their church members, because these spaces become like more powerful than their own churches. And because these spaces, you are not really accountable to it, and that space is not really accountable to you, it makes you feel alienated from your actual place of worship. And mind you, people pray on these platforms without necessarily having to go to the church. I already said that they don't even know the names. So in conclusion, I would like to say that there's a sense of community which is happening on this platform and emerging because of channeling of harmonious energies. And this is actually raising a new generation of Christians who see digital spaces as legitimate spaces of worship and communal building. And because for some young respondents, they don't go to church. They are not, they don't even attend churches, but they pray on this platform. And they think these are more even legitimate because in the physical churches, there's marginality. These spaces also make you understand that while salvation is an individual affair, it's a communal effort, right? You pray for me, I pray for you, we hold hands. And it can be a place of isolation for people. Of course, there are a lot of ethical issues here. And that we have to understand that technology, whether it's digital spaces, whether it is AI, whether it is chatbots, whatever it is, they have become a part of our spiritual experiences. Especially for the younger generation, this is what it is for them. And we shouldn't even think that African youth or even older people in Africa are not part of this process. They are in very different and diverse ways. So it is important to have conversations about this, because this is how we think about a module that is suitable for use for our spiritual experiences as Africans. And it's interesting that the convener of NSPPD writes on his website that they become such a force to be reckoned with, that they deserve studying, academic attention, because they understand that they are beginning to change the spiritual landscape in Ghana in terms of how people feel about these spaces. So, Oyiwaladon, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abena, for your fascinating talk. I'm going to open the floor. I see Alison with her very little shy finger. Then I see George, and who else? Okay, okay, accept. Okay, let's start with Alison. We go to George. Here, is it Sandra? And then, yeah, okay.
Everyone.
Everyone, yes. Okay, everyone will have a chance. So Alison, can start.
I just have a couple of questions around like who you spoke to, and I'm curious about kind of the geographical breakdown of the constituents. I think you mentioned this Ghanaian group and then this Nigerian group, but are they mostly like located in, is it mostly like urban residents? Like how do these physical spaces kind of facilitate this like in-person kind of contact? And I'm just curious about, I guess it's hard to tell with the online space, but like what the age breakdown is. I guess it seems like, you know, there's this new generation of Christians and it's more like youth leaning, presumably like people your age since you will be coerced into joining. But are there also any kind of generational differences between, you know, how people associate and differentiate between digital and non-digital religious spaces? And has there been any pushback from physical churches, you know, targeted at these digital platforms?
I mean, we can take like a couple of questions and then you can respond to them.
George was 3, so if you take more than 3, I'm going to.
Okay. So we can take.
Okay, yes, sure.
Yes, George.
Thank you.
Yes.
For your I have to 3 quick comments. The first is about, it's very amazing to see how the potential of the new technology can change over time, because I remember at the beginning of social media in Africa, many people would say it is the another extension of the devil, you know. But now today, 20 years later, you can see like many religious people started to make activities online. That's the first comment. And the second comment is about the privacy and intimacy. You know, in the Bible, sometimes they say you don't need to show public that you are praying. And now the way people pray online have a lot of competition with this kind of idea. That's the second one. The last one is about the faith in your conclusion. You say technology is now part of our religion. But at the same time, technology is instead another new religion today. So I think maybe if you can make comment on all these comments I just made now.
So do you want to respond to those ones? Okay.
Just speak.
Okay, respond to those ones and then we will go to the others.
Yeah. Thank you, Alison, for that. The age range. So for my respondents, it was between, I've had 19 to 60, but I've spoken to people who started praying when they were in junior high. So if they were in junior high, they must have been around 14, 15 when they started praying. So those who are around 19, some of them started praying when they were that young. And it is not even their families who introduced them. It's friends and, interestingly, some teachers. Yeah. So that's it. Yes, the physical space for NSPPD is basically English. And as I said, neo-Pentecostal is very elitist in middle class. So, of course, it doesn't mean that those in rural or other spaces, but they mostly always start in these spaces. So the fact that even the language here is English is telling you something, right? For Alpha Hour is in English and Tree, one of the predominantly spoken languages in Ghana. And I have heard people give testimony in that language. So what it means then is that other people outside that space can actually, whether it is in the capital or not, can be on it. And because it's digital, and because now, like you said, technologies are religion, it's all over. But it's an interesting thing, and I would want to look at how geography affects how people participate. So thank you for that. Yes, your comments and my comment on your comments. And I didn't write them because I thought they were comments. but yes, the contradiction. When, like you said, when it first started, people thought the internet was going to destroy the world. There are some religious denominations that do not allow the use of it because they say it's from the devil, it's from Armageddon. But COVID taught us otherwise. I am yet to know of a denomination which did not jump onto these platforms. Of course, except those who are congregated and living together as sects by themselves. But when COVID started, every church, at least that I know of denomination, was moved online. And although it might have eased, especially for the traditional churches, WhatsApp groups are still ongoing. I am here in my WhatsApp. I've been making contributions home because I'm on the WhatsApp group and they are saying we are having harvest. You know. So yes, it's interesting that that contradiction is there and we are still using it. Now the part about technology being a new religion, it is. There's, in fact, for this, what is happening here, the main driving force is technology and nothing else. Without technology, this is not happening. The fact that people are also tied to their gadgets, and it is their gadgets. I remember a pastor saying, if your phone breaks that down now, we are not a Christian because they are taking notes. I don't have a physical Bible, but your phone is on your Bible is on your phone, your devotions are on your phone. When I go to church, the priest is preaching, I pick my phone, I'm making notes, right? So yes, I don't remember the three, but
it's fun.
Yeah, the thing for neo charismatics, it's about warfare.
Yeah,
it's about praying with others. And you hear on the platform the pastor saying, I cannot hear you. Let your prayer rise. I can't hear your voice. Put fire. So for them, it's not about, it might sound contradictory, but they will tell you this is not the time to pray in private.
Yeah.
So for them, that is not their theology. That is not how they conceptualize prayer in their Christian life. They do encourage some private meditation, but generally, it's about the communality of their faith.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to take the next set of questions. Be quick and quick response, so we can have more. It's a lot of people. There's also chat. Many. There's also chat. If you're interested in chat, right? So yes, and then Fanny. This is the second. Then we'll take Axel and Susan. Yeah.
Thank you for this presentation. I can notice that there is a very good ethnography that you did. You know, all these questions about spiritualism, religion, prayer is a little bit subjective. Right? So then my question is, I'm interested to know how that you manage to bring all this subjectivity to objectivity. And then how did you get the commitment? Research, the commitment.
Yeah, I get consent.
Yeah, you get it, but the person,
The people I'm talking to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
because it's a little bit
Very personal.
Yes. So keep that. We asked Fanny.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Very, very stimulating presentation. I really really enjoyed it. So I was very interested in a lot of things, but I find fascinating this idea, it's a phenomenon that I'm observing in many things also, is this cultural vestiges that is kind of blind, this kind of capacity to create that feel present in ways wherever people find themselves. And it's almost like there's this creative impulse that is still present, but in different bodies. It keeps shifting, and this is articulated. And it's also a question to people in the room, also because there's a lot of competition here. It's also articulated through different people, like Patrick Chabal, for example, in the Politics of Something and Smiling, where he's almost playing with that dichotomy and what is happening in the middle. And there's also sometimes the baby is not born with the bathwater, but sometimes the basin in which the baby finds this new water is still hurting the baby's skin, and that is the baby still alive and still singing and still playing. So I wonder how you write that. How do you talk about this kind of zombiness, undeadness thing, and keep exploring, but also what point do we create to thrive?
Okay. Answer.
Okay.
Quick.
Subjectivity and objectivity. That's a very difficult one, right? So what I try to do is ask my respondents mostly to make meaning of their own experiences. And in making meaning out of their experiences, I'm able to ask questions. So what does it mean? What does prayer mean to you? I will ask a question like that. I don't ask what is prayer. What does prayer mean to you? What does it mean to you? Because it's your phenomenology, right? It is your understanding of what is happening. But I also, as a researcher, I am also imbued with certain tools and skills to also make interpretation based on observed patterns, right? So how do I know that there are vestiges of neo-Pentecostalism here? Because it has patterns of it. So when people are given, because they are expecting testimony, I am seeing commodification. But to the person, giving is not a problem to them because they are expecting something. So they are making a certain meaning, and I'm also making a certain meaning based on observed patterns and published work. But I get that it's very difficult sometimes. So for instance, there are some questions, to be frank, I don't ask all my participants the same question. Because if you are asking someone who has had 4 IVFs and failed, you don't ask them if you think this platform is fake, because I don't have alternatives for them. And that comes with the ethical issue. And I'm working with a colleague on the paper about even doing such kind of research. What are the ethical implications for us as researchers who do this kind of work? And we enter people's lives and we think we can make meaning out of their own experiences and explain those kinds of experiences, because I've spoken to people who say, I speak with them after every 10 days, tell me, can you not use it? After 1 hour. And I find that very interesting with also my male respondents. They don't want me to record. And they don't want me to write. They want me to listen to the conversation and later summarize whatever it is that I heard. But I read to tell people this is what it is. I anonymize people in my write-up. And sometimes even in narrating the experiences and the stories, I twist it also. The core of it remains, but you also want to respect and protect your respondents. So those who do not want certain stories shared, I don't share. Right? And I think it's linked to Fanny, this is your question. Religion is a necessary evil, Christianity especially. Let's face it, it's become a necessary evil in Africa. If we throw the water away with the baby, difficult. You know why? Because we live now in a space where people are dying because of a lot of factors: unemployment, disease, political instability. There are a lot of problems, and that is why I think one of the issues why. So I have another paper why young people join these platforms, right? It's because people are groping, and that becomes, as you see, it's hope.
Mm.
Yeah? So even when people are praying now for jobs that they know they don't qualify for, but are hoping a reap of a better future. We can have this conversation, but
Yeah. So we go to another set, Axel, and then Susan. Yeah, we are gonna extend a bit so people can have time to ask questions. So we're gonna have this set, another set. Minga will see if it's possible. Yes, because she also talks a lot, you know. So Axel.
the questions are such that I have to.
Yeah, that's right. I'm checking. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Quick question. Yes.
That's really a contemporary issue
Mm.
because it is happening while we are speaking.
Yeah.
Can you please maybe 3 comments and 1 question?
Mhm.
Can you please clarify the origin of the Pentecostalism? Because from my understanding, Pentecostalism originated from the USA, and it's then spread to English-speaking countries. And can you please clarify that, because you said that it is the neo-Pentecostalism was developed, is originated in the West Africa. So I'm not very sure. Then I have my remarks. Is that the fact that the digital space is used for proselytism, but at the same time, it also tells it is the chosen space for spiritual abuse. That spiritual abuse. And in that spiritual space, you have authorized voices that just they say they are right. No one knows where they did the school of faith. I don't know from in Catholicism, for example, you just don't come up and you are a priest. You go to seminaries, you have to go to school and people know where you school. In Pentecostalism, I wonder if it is the same thing, because in a lot of francophone countries, as you speak about my country, we have that issue because people just say, oh, they are charismatic, they have no revelation, and they open a church with no background. So, how do you think that the digital space is a way to legitimize people who cannot say the basic way? Because people will say, I have this amount of followers, so I am legitimate. And then I would also like to give a perspective on the Anglophony and Francophonie, because what you describe is really, you're observing a lot in front and in Anglophone countries. In Anglophone countries, in Francophone countries, we have also some similar phenomena, but not as big as NSPPD or Alpha. NSPPD actually now spreading in Francophone Africa, but the one thing is Anguka from London. So he preaches in French and in Kirundi. It is not the same, it is not as long and as elaborate as what he described. I think it's 10 to 20 minutes. And that's it. Kabuka for French speaking in Africa. And I think in France, it is ICC, yes. But it is not that much a thing. That's why I think really want you to elaborate about the origin. If it is really West Africa, or if it is the USA. And then I will end by saying that it also says something about the society. People are going, this is a transition now, so these are some societies in transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the parallels in what happens with opium consumption in Vietnam, Laos, and in Southeast Asia between 1910 and 1935, when society goes through a big transition process. When society are changing, we are trying to go into access industrialized societies. People need service. And
Thank you. Thanks, Axel, very much for the comments. I mean, there's a lot to digest here. It's another presentation. Thank you. Suzanne, quick and then quick response, and then she's here. If you have any urgent questions, there's a lot of questions. Your chat is on fire. So if there's a lot of questions on the chat also, so you can check. Yes, exactly. Suzanne, forward that. Yes.
Mine is more or less, I'm wondering about if to do it at my thing, and maybe you can understand. Maybe this part. Are the people attending the physical platform do they attend as anonymous or in the names? Because in Kenya, where I come from, I remember one incident where there's a platform, I think it was a platform for playing, you know, when the spirit is there, the intercessor, you know, speaks, and one of my friends was mentioned. Susan, okay, I'm seeing you, your marital problem is because of your mother-in-law is a witch. You can imagine what happened.
Yeah.
And if not, is it a recommendation you would consider, you know, bringing forth to
Anonymity.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'll take it from there.
Quick. Yes. Quick.
Yeah, some join, mostly are anonymous. But some are actually mentioning their names and their children's name in the chat. So you know who is the who of them. Yeah. You know. So yeah. Maybe we'll talk about it more in the office.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think that it actually started from the US as also street preachers, where it became a big deal in West Africa with the horses and televangelism, because it's also met the time of the new media. And so it really did become a huge movement. And what I said had started was the whole Pentecostal movement, what we normally call African independent churches, starting from Liberia with Watson and others, coming to Ghana, returning and going down into Central Africa. Now, those movements, we call them African indigenous churches, linked to what Kani said, started in Africa, and that is why we syncretize it mostly with most of our traditions, such as singing, drumming, healing, and exorcisms.
Quick, very quick. Good. I'm sorry, Tina and Minga. I think I don't know.
It's okay.
I'm messy.
Tina will talk.
Yes, I mean, we can sit and discuss and chat. I mean, it's fine. What do we continue? Yes.
First, we need to close because you have
Okay. Okay. Yes, we have a lot of questions online. Very long questions. Long one from Divine. Long one from Bukari, and a long one from Cecilia. And a long one from, no, this one is saying thank you, Abena Salah. So, so yes. Huh? But they are long. They are a lot. You know? So I don't know.
Please, you can leave my email.
Yes.
Leave my email in the chat.
okay then.
I mean, it's on the saved on the chat, so it'll be there. You can visit those questions anytime. And this long text, you know. So an essay, exactly. So you can ask quickly, can go through.
Okay.
Yes, quickly.
Thank you,
Yes.
Thank you, Tina.
That was really fascinating.
Yeah.
I think the whole room was riveted. Everybody's quiet.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting for me that you were saying that young people, like it seems to be a preferred platform for young people to pray. I wonder if you will make any connection. Like, I mean, I think online is the preferred medium for young people in many areas of their lives.
Yes.
So not just spirituality. So, you know, like cinemas are closing because young people don't go to cinema any longer. During COVID, no one could go and watch sports matches, and they're not going to go and watch the what do we call the Springboks playing the Australians this weekend because it's too expensive. So it's kind of like happening in all aspects of our lives. Will you make any connection with people's lives, with society in general? It seems to me like it's not only a spirituality thing.
Yeah, thank you for bringing the conversation, Tina. I think so too. But it's also interesting, remind you that there's also fatigue. I mean, this was just a presentation I could put in as much. People are riveted onto their phones, but there's also fatigue that gets to that point where people want that connection with other humans. Every aspect of our lives now are moving on to, I think every aspect now is on the digits, right? It's online. We are ordering food, we are doing this, really. But note that for these young people, they do not go to church, they do not attend the churches of these pastors. They have their own physical churches they attend on Sunday. They are singers, they are this, but this is their preferred space for prayer. Because of in fact, the word is, they tell me, is lack of judgment. And nobody is seeing what I'm saying. Nobody, because in church, if the pastor say pray for wealth and you open your eyes, you will see who needs money. If the pastor is saying pray for sin, absorption of sins, and you open your eyes, you know who has been sinning this week, right? Because of, the fervor with which people are praying. But in these spaces, young people feel that it's just them. Also, they are the digital generation. This is what they are used to. Like you say, in all aspects of their life, whether it's their lectures, which are online, whether it is entertainment, whatever it is. So it is also accessible to them. And I think another issue that even came up in the paper I said I've done on the young people, and I'm doing on the young people, is this whole idea of preparing yourself for prayer. But on NSPPD or Alpha Hour, you just join in. You don't have to wake up and bath and go to church and sing and push yourself. Oh yes, you can do it wherever. Even if you are cooking, you put it there and you are praying along. So whichever space. I think the former one is done now.
Yeah. I think because you have a class to catch. You just said that quietly. I have a class to catch. So we don't want to keep her more, but yes, thank you very much. It was really great.